Hello, and welcome to today's special webinar event on defending your data from bad actors. Today's webinar is sponsored by Rubrik and Pure Storage and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Scott Becker. I'm from Actual Tech Media, and I'm excited to be your moderator for this special event. Now, before we get to today's great content, there are a few things you should know about this webinar. First off, we want this to be an informative event for you, so we encourage any questions in the questions box in our webinar control panel. Not only will we have team members responding to questions during the live event, but we'll also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the presentation where we'll discuss in greater detail some of the top questions that you ask. Second, in the handout section of your webinar control panel, you'll find that we're offering several resources. We have a white paper about FlashBlade data protection with Rubrik, as well as a link to Rubrik.com for more information. So I encourage you to access those resources now and share them with your friends and colleagues. Third, at the end of this webinar event, we will be awarding a $300 Amazon gift card to one lucky attendee on the live event. Of course, you must be in attendance during the live event to qualify for that prize. We recognize that some of you work for organizations that don't allow you to accept prizes. If that's the case for you, or if you want to donate the value of the gift card, we do work with several great charitable organizations. So thanks to generous prize winners on previous Actual Tech Media events, thousands of dollars have been donated to those organizations. So thank you in advance if you make that choice today. The official terms and conditions of today's prize drawing can be found in the handout section. Just scroll to the bottom and you'll find the prize terms and conditions link there. And finally, one of the best benefits of this event is the opportunity to ask questions of our expert presenters. And to help encourage your questions, we have a special additional prize. That's another Amazon gift card, this one for $50 for the best question. At the end of the event, we'll look at all the questions, pick out the very best one, and contact that prize winner. And with that, let's get to today's event. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to our presenters today. We have Ramesh Chatur, who's Senior Director of Strategic Alliances at Rubrik, and we also have David Huskisson, who is Rapid Restore Solution Manager at Pure Storage. So at this point, I'm going to turn things over to Ramesh. Ramesh, take it away.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. From wherever you're joining, I'd like to introduce you to this webinar with Rubrik and Pure Storage, moderated by Actual Tech Media. The title of the webinar is Defending Your Data from Bad Actors. My name is Ramesh Chatur. I'm a Senior Director of Strategic Alliances at Rubrik. I've been here close to 4 years. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank David Huskisson, my co-presenter and good friend from Pure Storage. And also like to take this opportunity to thank our good friends at Pure Storage. Pure has been a fantastic partner of Rubrik since a long time. In fact, since the early days of Rubrik's inception. We have great product adjacencies. Pure is a world-class all-flash storage platform. Rubrik is a world-class data security platform, and we complement each other so well with modern technologies. We also have tremendous value exchange. I'd like to also highlight that we have co-investments in the space, and it's just going to be a really good session. Looking forward to cover a lot of great details with David and the team here. And we'd like to keep this session very interactive. So if you have questions, don't wait till the end of the session, keep popping them, and we'll have experts answering it as soon as we can. So with that, and with no further ado, we'll move forward to the next slide. Let's get started. I wanted to give you a real background of what this session is all about. So we will be covering how Rubrik is changing the landscape of the data security. And in many ways, we're going to go through the details and the value proposition. But it all starts with the top priorities you have in mind. When we talk to our customers, CISOs, CTOs, prospects, all of these entities, regularly 3 different ideas come top of mind. One is the concept of data security. Data is the core asset in your enterprise. The question remains, how quickly can I recover from a threat? like a ransomware. And typically what we've seen is on an average, it takes about 21 days to recover from a ransomware. That's the downtime. And we'll dive into a lot of details on this subject. The second one is, how do I automate data management? Because there's data that's spread in all these silos, whether it's enterprise, cloud, SaaS applications, and how can I fully protect that? And as of today, what we know from reports and studies is only 62% of the application data is protected, right? So that means about 38% of the data is vulnerable to be taken down. And if the applications go down, your data goes down, your business goes down, and you cannot suffer this kind of a downtime. So we'll go a little more into details of what the solutions are in that space as well. And then moving forward, the next priority always is, how do I fast track my cloud journey? How do I go to the cloud safely, right? And this is where, if you have an application like Microsoft Office 365, and if you want to leverage the cloud, how do I get there safely, securely, in the lowest amount of time? And this is where Rubrik and Pure add a lot of value together. And we've seen about 71% of organizations that are in this space of M365, they've suffered some kind of an M365 account takeover. So this is so important for us to take into fact that while we have all these priorities, it's very important to go and bet on a very, very important solution that can make your journey easier, faster, at the lowest cost, and most importantly, at the lowest risk. Because the risk of taking down is totally not worth it. There's not a day, there's not a week, there's not a month or a quarter or a year that goes by without using multiple cases of ransomware threats. Because everyone's trying to move to digital, and digital transformation is a must. But with that comes in the threat of a digital threat, and it's coming in the form of a ransomware attack. So that in a sense is the whole picture of why we need to look into protecting your data and betting on a world-class data security platform. And this is what Rubrik is invested in, and we are changing the game in this space. So if you move forward, when you think about it, your core asset in the enterprise is your data, right? Data is your currency. We've known that for some time. And the data is spread across multiple silos, right? Whether it's enterprise with VMware, Oracle database, other databases, other enterprise applications, or choice of cloud, the hyperscaler, this Amazon, Microsoft, Google, and others. Or the data can be in a SaaS format with Microsoft Office 365 or SAP HANA. No matter where your data sits, the burden of protecting them sits on your IT. The IT guys are always thinking, okay, I have all these fragments of data. The data is growing. It's growing at a much faster rate than I've imagined. And now I need to protect them. Now the challenge here, guys, is before Rubrik came in, the only choice you really had is to go in with the legacy solutions. And the legacy data protection solutions were built before the cloud era. So that's one problem. So they're insufficient. The other thing is they're also the single system of record for all your data. So if you're banking on them, that is clearly not enough. You get taken down, the applications go down, the risk just multiplies. And with the threats that are coming in, your problem just got supersized. So the enormity of this cannot be understated, right? It is a clear and present danger. So Rubrik looked at it, and having come in the cloud era and having understood the problem, we started building on this. So when you go through what we've done and you click through this, what you'll see is the IT guys who are facing all these problems, they have some choices. There are about 40 to 50 different solutions that are being thrown at them at different levels, right? You see perimeter, network, endpoint, application, DDoS, and all these. Unfortunately, what happens is even if you invest in multiple of these solutions, the bad actors are able to break it. They come in, they hijack the application, the credentials are lost. In some cases, it's multiple. The blast radius is big, right? So the applications start going down. When your applications goes down, your problem just started, but you also do not know how big the problem is. What applications went down? Where else did they go down? What do I know? So this is where Rubrik has changed the game, and we are coming in with a single piece of code that converges data protection and data security that's easy to scale on a universal platform, and we are starting to provide the peace of mind. We're able to build through that and able to solve this problem uniquely. So this is what we call Rubrik's Zero Trust Data Security Platform, and we are able to recover and protect your data and give you that much needed peace of mind so that you can go focus on your business without having to worry that what happens if my application gets taken down. If you click through this, you'll see that why are organizations stuck paying ransoms, right? First of all, let's go through the anatomy of it. First, the ransomware comes in, it locks down the data, okay? Data gets encrypted because their bad guys are able to sneak in. What are your options? As soon as you find out, do you want to go ahead and pay the ransom? If you pay the ransom, do you think you're still good? What else has been hit? So what other options do you have? Okay, let's say you choose not to pay the ransom and you want to recover. And that can be complicated too. This is the first time you'll have to engage your IT ops and your SecOps. Both teams have to work together. They'll have to answer a whole plethora of questions. Is my data protected? What part got taken down? Is there sensitive data that got taken down? Is there personal information? And then what is my time to recover? What kind of investigations do I need to run? How much time is it going to take? Should I just go and pay the ransom? No. Is there sensitive data that's gone? And by the way, if I recover, is the recovery going to be healthy, or are there going to be bad infections out there? So it is so complex, and then can we recover quickly? And oftentimes what happens is these answers, are complex. And if you go to a legacy solution and if you've invested in a legacy solutions, there's one or two answers. One is, I don't know if there's an answer to your question for one or multiple of these, or the answer is no. And clearly, then your business is down, you're losing money, every single hour in multitudes, and that is a bad problem to have. And you still end up paying the ransom. So this is a really complex problem. Its enormity is huge. So what can we do about it, right? This is where we came with a fresh approach with securing your data with Rubrik. Because when you're protected by Rubrik, there is a single piece of code, software that you can bank on that can get the data security job done with Rubrik Zero Trust Data Protection. And what that means, I'll get into that in a minute. And it also has data security. And Zero Trust Data Security, what that really means is Rubrik works in a way where you do not trust any of the stuff that's going on. Rubrik goes with the assumption that your entire infrastructure is compromised. And when there's a real hit, we'll work towards resilvering all the data, hydrating, so that we can restore it to the point of time that you really need in the fastest possible way. And the way we do that is with 5 different components. The first one is Rubrik Zero Trust Data Protection. What this really means is at the core of Rubrik Zero Trust Data Protection within the data security is Rubrik's intelligence with AI and ML that can tell you what kind of credentials need to be authenticated to access what kind of data. To start off, we're rock solid there. Then on top of that, if you add on the immutability of the Rubrik file system, it's truly immutable, cannot be encrypted, and then we also logically air gap. So you keep on adding more and more strengths that makes it rock solid from a data protection perspective. And then, unfortunately, if you get hit by ransomware with a legacy solution, you have no answers. But with Zero Trust, Rubrik as a ransomware investigation process. With that, what happens is you can discover data anomalies with AI and ML. You can look into anomalies and recover to a certain point in time. And all of this tells you that the investigation process, like we said, can take a lot of time. The whole idea is to cut down the time it takes to investigate. So that is Rubrik's authentic ransomware investigation. And the more important part for me is if there's a sensitive data that's been lost or impacted or compromised. And for that, you'll have to look through that. Data classification becomes so important because the dimensions of data protection is massive. And Rubrik thinks through all these angles and explores what kind of risks are there. As an example, if you are a victim of ransomware investigation, did you lose any personal information, right? Any PIA being lost. So we can assess all those risks. Is there a double extortion, right? These kinds of risks are real, and Rubrik proactively thinks through that. And then we work on things like incident containment. And let's look at what incident containment means. When you're recovering, getting back to a healthy state, what if there's a bad actor that sneaks in? And this is where Rubrik's threat hunting comes into play. With this, we are able to look into the bad ones, quarantine them, clean them, and come back to a time that is clean. And we totally get rid of the malware infection to a healthy state so that you're up and running. This is what businesses need today. They need an actual solution that works, says that it works when it works, and classify. And finally, you look at orchestrated application recovery. This is for mass and bulk recovery, where you can recover apps and data with guided workflows. You can tell at what time you want to recover, how you want to recover, and we do this all by adhering to the NIST security standards, which means there is a lot of preparation that goes into it. We are able to proactively detect and analyze this, and then go into containment, total eradication, and complete recovery. This has never been done before, and this is why Rubrik's Zero Trust data security is a game changer. And now let's see what happens when you apply the Rubrik Zero Trust data security to data, and this helps you avoid paying the ransom. So now you have an option to attempt and recover. You don't have to pay the ransom. You know that the IT SecOps team are working together. And this is where Rubrik has integrated with a world-class Palo Alto solution, Palo Alto network solution. We are part of the XOR integration. We can make sure that the data is protected, regularly being investigated, your sensitive data is protected, and go through the incidents and make sure those are contained. More importantly, we can recover quickly and recover to the point of time that you need, right? And recover the data. And when we work with Pure Storage as an example, Pure can do stuff on the snapshot side. They can go recover and go into a healthy state. So this is a total game changer coming from Zero Trust data security. And the number of customers that are adopting this is soaring every single day, both in the enterprise, commercial, and all kinds of verticals. And we'll go through one of the use cases later today. But let's see what else Rubrik is offering. So when this is working, Rubrik is also offering a ransomware recovery warranty. This is a first in the industry where Rubrik is really doubling down on its technology. Rubrik is offering up to $5 million in ransomware recovery warranty when you work and invest in Rubrik's Enterprise Edition. And we work together in doing data security best practices. So for all of you listening out there, we can work towards an assessment of your environments and give you peace of mind. So the warranty here from Rubrik for ransomware recovery, it warrants up to $5 million based on the data that is protected by recovery. And there's other details that's garnered by subject to terms and conditions. So there's a lot of data we covered there in terms of what Rubrik does. But at this stage, I want to turn over to my good friend, David Huskisson, to see what he's got to share with us from Pure Storage. Thank you, David. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Ramesh. That was a terrific session there, and a great setup for me to bring us home. So let's just talk about let's do a bit of, and Ramesh has said a lot of the context, and I think everyone hopefully who's viewing this call will know why data protection is so important. But if we really zoom in on the last sort of 3 or 4 years, for me, I've been in the industry a long time, and I think what I'm seeing more recently is is some new trends. So given current circumstances, we've all been at home, we've all been remote, and we're fully into this sort of digital transformation. Volumes of data are growing rapidly. That's a big issue for data protection. That's a big trend. I think for me, again, as a veteran, I'm pretty excited that I feel data protection is going through a renaissance right now. So 20, 15 years ago, it was all about sort of tape and how long it takes me to back up, and it feels like just an insurance policy. And I think with the growth in sort of ransomware especially, I think sort of data protection and data protection strategies are going through kind of a golden age, because now decision makers and CXO staff look at data protection as the vehicle that gets me out of a mess. So now we're seeing some great new technologies. Ramesh just spent some time showing you some of the great innovations that Rubrik have built, and I think we're seeing that generally across the industry. And I think part of that is the real growth and the real use, I would say, of data protection in solving some of those ransomware situations. And then finally, more of a personal thing, I feel like, again, we're all in a universe now where we're taking our experiences with sort of commercial IT, like streaming services and photos and cloud storage, and we're bringing those with us to work. And I think what that's driving is, I think it's driving this need to have everything available all of the time. Sounds kind of crazy, but I think that's driving data protection now more towards a recovery discussion, not necessarily a backup one. So I think some of these things are really re-emphasizing the importance of data protection. So just a little bit of a pop quiz, just to break it up a little bit. So 3 questions here. You can read the slides. I'll just pause for just a couple of seconds. Just mentally, take note of, kind of what your views are, what your answers would be to these 3 questions. And so these are some industry statistics. For me, the surprising one, and Ramesh again sort of talked to this kind of nicely, is that middle one. That the fact that that people are paying ransoms, and that is a sizable average ransomware payout. And clearly we hear about the big ones that make the news, but there's thousands of them that never get near the media. And I was astounded actually when I saw this statistic that organizations are still paying on average this level of ransomware payout, if you like. And it kind of gets to this really. And again, Ramesh sort of touched on this. There is a question, a philosophical question around, should you really be paying the ransom? And you can see some statistics here. Not a big surprise that even if you do pay the ransom, over a third of customers, organizations that report don't get all of their data back. And I just want to throw in a couple of other statistics here. 50% of the time we've seen in a study where the ransom gets paid, the attacker just wanders off with the money and never pays out. So you've got a 1 in 2 chance of actually paying your 230 grand and not getting any data. And then even if you pay the ransom, that can be a signal that you're a payer. So what's to stop the attacker coming back and repeating the exercise? And there's clearly a chance that even during your sort of cleanup and you go through your data validation, they may leave something in there that lets them get back in a lot easier. So there's lots of good reasons why you shouldn't pay the ransom, but obviously if you're in a crunch situation, people are paying over 230 grand to try and get their data back. So let's just sort of pause a little bit and just talk about sort of the what we would call an anatomy of a ransomware attack, both from a sort of from a process perspective and also from a timeline perspective. And there's really 3 distinct phases of a ransomware attack. Phase 1 is really about getting into an organization, whether that's exploiting known vulnerabilities, poor credential hygienes, attacking DMZ servers. We know there are thousands of ways when we do postmortems of how attackers actually get in. I think the one thing that does get lost a little bit is it's not an automatic, once I'm in, I then go and start encrypting or deleting data. There is this whole moment called dwell time. And, and I think there was certainly a study at least a year ago that was saying the average attacker in a large enterprise could spend north of, 120, 130 days actually just sitting inside of your organization's IT infrastructure and just looking, going through systems quietly, trying to gain access, looking at where data's growing, attacking backup products, because I think one of the unfortunate trends we're seeing, because there's now more reliance on data protection to get you out of a crunch, attackers, are now, are targeting those systems. So there's this whole concept of dwell time, just figuring out data patterns, where the important data is. Of course, when it comes to the actual attack, the moment of encryption or deletion, that happens very quickly. We've heard some terrible stories from organizations that we've worked with where, within 30 minutes, you can have no access to anything. And even sometimes you have to get down to the data center and actually, physically get into the data center and start some kind of remediation approach. Let's look at it again from a sort of timeline perspective. And again, there's, you can see it's weeks and months rather than, hours and days. And, you can kind of see from the slide here, all the processes we go through. And then obviously, unfortunately for us as the organization, that final process of analysis, which is critical, and then the subsequent recovery is days or months. And, there's some great examples out there where it's, organizations get attacked and it can take, upwards of a month to get back into service. I do think, though, there is a glimmer of an upside here. And the glimmer of the upside to me is, whilst these attackers are, methodical and will spend that dwell time looking at the environment, trying to figure out what those critical data sets are to attack, I think it does give organizations time to do analysis, have security and management software in there, looking for patterns, doing log analysis and device analysis to actually look to see whether there's unusual behavior. And we'll come back to that in a moment. So how can Pure really help your organizations, mitigate, prevent, insulate you, recovery from a ransomware, from a ransomware attack? And I just wanted to spend a few moments, and Ramesh said in his portion of the session, this is where we've done a lot of joint engineering, with Rubrik. Really delighted with the solution that we've kind of built together. And so we've introduced a capability called safe mode snapshots, and really it just sits around or on top of or adjacent to our normal snapshot technologies, either on FlashArray or on FlashBlade. And it really just implements a separate security model that prevents those snapshots being removed. So if I'm taking snapshots of my critical virtual machines, which are orchestrated by Rubrik, even if the attacker gets onto my FlashArray somehow and tries to delete the virtual machines, then goes after the snapshots that Rubrik has created with safe mode, that it makes it almost impossible to be able to do that. So you're effectively securing copies of your critical data the moment that storage snapshot has occurred. It's literally milliseconds. So the window for attack is negligible. And obviously with all flash storage, when it comes to recovery is so much more speedier, and works seamlessly across FlashBlade and FlashArray. And again, because of the engineering integration work we've done with Rubrik, it's all seamless to you as the administrator. So great feature, easy to turn on, no additional licensing. You can just get it going, and you've instantly got levels of protection there. So if we look at kind of the next part here, and I sort of alluded to that, because of this dwell time that goes on in large scale attacks, you have got a window of time to have your security, your log analysis, device analysis capabilities, being able to constantly scan for your unknown behavior, strange behavior, and so on. And really the benefit that Pure brings there is, by using a lot of the industry technologies that are out there, if you're running those on all flash storage, clearly you can run, speed is greatly accelerated with all flash technologies. So clearly you can run more queries, you can analyze a lot more in a much shorter space of time. But also I think what's kind of critical is, you can, with Pure's data reduction capabilities that are built directly into our storage offerings, what it means is you can, compress, data reduce all of those logs and actually keep logs for a lot longer without breaking any kind of storage budget. So you can build up a much longer, bigger piece of, bigger chunks of analysis to really get to the bottom of and understand if anything untoward is happening in your environment. And then, again, I both myself and Ramesh have talked about this already, but when it comes, when the rubber meets the road, it's all about being able to recover really, really quickly. Again, there's some great examples out there. One well-known example from 2017, shipping company, went to bed on a Thursday night with 10,000 virtual machines operating their shipping fleet, woke up the next day, 0 virtual machines, couldn't access their VM infrastructure. Okay, luckily for them, they had, a comprehensive backups, so they could begin the recovery process. Unfortunately for them, the technologies they were using just meant they weren't designed for high performance mass restore. So whilst they had great backups and secure backups, it was a 30-day plus lead time, and that cost that organization over $200 million. You know, not all breaches cost that, but that's generally, you know, in a very large enterprise that is very heavily reliant on IT, with a recovery system not designed for mass restore, that can be what you're effectively exposed to. So really, having that best-in-class recovery performance is absolutely critical. And again, in conversations with organizations we work with, it's trying to move that mindset from what I do day to day, which is maybe recovering half a dozen virtual machines and 5 or 6 databases. It's really building a recovery strategy for you to be able to recover everything in a space of time that doesn't cost, you know, doesn't massively cost the business from a revenue and brand perspective, if you like. So really, you know, I'll conclude here and hand back to Ramesh in a moment. I'm hoping when you walk away from this, you understand that, you know, certainly the work we've done with Rubrik, you know, the joint engineering work we've done can really bring our safe mode snapshots under the control orchestration of Rubrik, and can offer you instantly, you know, an extra layer of protection, but also can drive incredibly quick recoveries, so that you're not just sitting there waiting while your business is suffering. And clearly, the great news from our side is that it's part of the standard Purity offering on both FlashArray and FlashBlade, and it all fits very nicely together with the engineering work that Rubrik have done in partnership with us. So I'll pause there. Just as Ramesh said, I'm hoping that as I'm talking, you're adding questions, so we can get back to you on those. But I'll hand back to you, Ramesh, to get us over the finish line here.
Thank you, David. That was very enlightening. And now for the exciting part, we're going to move towards a case study and some more details on where you can get help and more details. So the first part, I'd like to cover this case study of a large financial institution that was able to successfully accelerate the digital transformation with Rubrik and Pure Storage. And the most important part here was they were able to do this by fighting against an increased ransomware threat in the PCI, which is the payment card industry. So background, a large financial institution running on legacy storage and legacy data protection. They looked at Pure and Rubrik and they said, this is the best combination for us to protect our assets and to protect our customers' interests and where they want to go. And the reason they looked at us was because of the challenge they had. They had poor recovery time objectives, and the backup management was so complex. And they had difficulty scaling this to meet their compliance requirements. And when you look at it, they were able to reduce their backup management time and the resources needed by that by 8x. So you see there, a half of a headcount versus 4 of that, and they were able to reinvest those resources into the application space and work towards end user profitability. And successfully with Rubrik's immutability, they could protect against the ransomware attack. At the end of the day, what they really like is they were able to deal with a plethora of applications, whether it's VMware, SQL Server, and others, and they're growing their workloads in Pure and Rubrik. And they were able to realize a 30% in immediate hard dollar savings. So the business outcomes are just mind-boggling when you bet on 2 good technologies that complement each other well, whether it's FlashBlade, FlashArray, or all these solutions, even FlashArray. See that Pure is offering. Rubrik is in a position to protect and make your data secure, because when we secure your data, we secure your business. So that is massive. And in terms of next steps, if you want to hear about and learn about our latest innovations, you can go to rubrik.com and you will have all the resources there. You can also reach out to an alias within Rubrik. It's called data safety at rubrik.com, and you will get a free data security assessment for your opportunity. A specialist will jump onto you and we can walk you through the complex process and how we can make it simple for you to get help. And if you have other questions, beyond, if you're shy to ask, if you don't have time, just send us an email to pure@rubrik.com, and we are here to help you out. And I'd like to thank you all at this stage for listening through this. Thank you, David from Pure,
Pleasure.
and thank you, Becker from Actual Tech Media. And we can now transition to Q&A.
Okay, gentlemen, great discussion of some of the issues and solutions around ransomware and data protection there. We had a comment from Alan that Jurassic Park needed Rubrik/Pure Storage because the one bad actor IT guy ruined a billionaire's dream. So thanks for that observation, Alan. But Ramesh and David, are you ready for some questions? We've got a ton of them.
I see a lot of questions and some common themes. So let me see if I can answer some of these.
Okay.
So one common question we've seen is, do we have any more details on Rubrik's ransomware warranty and what products do these apply to? This is very exciting. So this pertains to Rubrik's Go Enterprise Edition. So very clear it is with Rubrik's Go Enterprise Edition, and it comes with Rubrik CEM, where we can do a monthly health check. So what happens is the warranty is tiered based on the amount of data you get protected. So that's one. I don't know, David, if you want to answer any questions on Rubrik CDM and FlashBlade.
No, I'm just going through I'm just having a quick look through the questions here. There was a question from Joe, I think. Can Rubrik be able to store Pure Storage safe mode snapshots with Pure Safe Mode enabled? Yeah, so the short answer to that is, Joe, yeah, absolutely. And Rubrik were one of our first partners here who were able to integrate with our flash array safe mode snapshots. So you can orchestrate flash array snapshots from Rubrik with safe mode enabled, and the moment that snapshot's completed, there'll be extra protection afforded to it via safe mode, but it will still all be sort of orchestrated and managed by Rubrik. So it's very seamless to switch on, and it's seamless to Rubrik. So you won't have to change anything. It will work with your normal operations as is.
David, there's another one about for you, I think. What are the common use cases for safe mode snapshots?
Yeah, good question. So what we've seen over the last year is there's sort of primarily two use cases, I guess. So there's the application end, if you like. So if you're taking snapshots of your virtual machines or any other critical applications. So if you're just taking regular storage snapshots, you can instantly protect those with safe mode. So that's the sort of the first one. And then the second one is, if you're storing backup repositories on a flash array or a FlashBlade, you can use safe mode to snapshot those as well. And so you're sort of protecting your mission critical apps at the source end, and then you're protecting your backup repositories as your secondary. So those are primarily the key use cases for safe mode that we see.
Okay, great. Hey, Ramesh, I've got one for you. That it's an interesting question about the partnership. Do you have any performance numbers with Rubrik CDM and Pure FlashBlade that you can share?
Yeah, absolutely. So with Pure, we've been working since the very early days of Rubrik, and we've done a lot of work with FlashArray, clearly with FlashBlade, and we have done multiple iterations of performance testing. Clearly, we love the product. There's been a large number of data sets that's been tested with it. So a couple of things I'll say is we have a handout as part of this webinar that we're giving out the numbers that we publish. There's more work underway. So there's a lot of different data that we've collected and given. And if you still need more data or details, just feel free to email me, or you can just send it to pure.com.
Okay, super. Yeah, and just a reminder that that handout is available in your handouts tab there. It's the FlashBlade data protection with Rubrik PDF for download there. You know, there were a couple of questions on a theme. We had one from Mark about, are there tools that help you know when to recover from? He continues, lots of malware sits dormant for a time, so you don't want to recover to a backup of dormant malware. And then we had another question from Bob, similar, you know, typically when notified by the ransomware, or once you find it, it's too late. The code is all in your backups. How can Rubrik or the joint solution cleanse our backups and infected online databases? Any thoughts or best practices around that?
You know what's unique, and that's a great question from Mark. I think that is very prevalent in the industry. What's happening is people don't know when to act. Oftentimes it's too late, and this is where Rubrik's zero trust data security solution is so cool, because it goes with the assumption that your systems are already compromised, right? Whether or not, it goes with the assumption that it's already compromised. And then when the event actually happens, you're able to recover so quickly. And that is where you have zero trust, zero security. We have a threat hunting capability. And all of this is based on AI and ML. So that is very, very handy, so that you don't have to think about when you're hit or how you're going to recover. So that's very important. The other thing I'll add is, again, based on a question here, that you have a whole bunch of products. How do I know when? This is where we can run an assessment in your environment with our partners like Pure and Palo Alto and others, and we can tell you where you can optimize.
Okay, super. Another question here from Shanti is asking, does Rubrik provide reference architecture for DR in the cloud?
Yes, we do. Thank you, Shanti, for that question. We have done that with multiple cloud vendors. Now, the term reference architecture is loosely used. So what we've done is we've done validations. Depending on who you want, we can provide what we have seen as best practices, because whatever we put out there, so that it is validated and it is guaranteed. So reference architecture can be loosely used in the industry. So what we have is data sets that we provide as white papers, and I'm happy to follow up offline on that.
Okay, super. Thank you. Next question for David. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how FlashBlade delivers high performance recovery. What's behind that?
Sure. Yeah. So I could take an hour, and I think we'd lose everybody. So just briefly, FlashBlade is our high performance, scale out, fast file and object offering, and that's really so rather than being a traditional piece of storage with a controller and then a bunch of storage, I think the sort of clues in the name. FlashBlade is actually a storage platform built on a blade architecture, and each blade has its own networking, storage, and compute. And so what that really means is that's really what gives you the scale, and obviously the storage is all flash, so you can expand up to sort of 10 petabytes. You can expand a flash blade into a single namespace, and each blade will give you a gigabyte a second of read. So what you often find is in sort of legacy infrastructures, the more you back up, especially when you're deduplicating, the slower it becomes. We don't have that penalty with FlashBlade, so you can just keep scaling, and as you scale, the actual performance increases. So actually, weirdly, the bigger it gets, the faster it goes. So that's a very quick soundbite on how FlashBlade is able to deliver that high performance recovery.
Okay, super. There were also some questions. We had a question from Warren about, scanning for PII data. Any thoughts about that? I'm sure that comes up. Are there tools that you guys have for that, or is that something you do with third parties?
So the answer is there's a combination, right? I mean, there's multiple tools in the industry. What we can do is, if there's an event, like the example that I provided, the use case, where the data gets compromised and you're not protected, or you're protected by an insufficient solution, that is an event that is not desirable. What we can do is help you get to a steady state much faster, and also show you through our assessments how you can avoid getting into those situations. So it's twofold: how to stay healthy, and then if you're healthy, how if an event happens when you're being protected by a legacy solution, how you can get to that. So that is a topic in itself. I'm happy to take that off.
Okay, great. Hey, this next one from Gilbert is sort of a philosophical question that I'm sure we could fill an hour with, but I'd love to get your take on it briefly. So Gilbert asks, how do you trade off data security, as in controlling access, versus data usability, for things like discoverability, normalization, metadata flow, governance, et cetera? I'm sure that comes up all the time. Any thoughts on how to manage that trade-off?
I think it's a great question. I think once you start trading off, you're letting the bad guys give them a chance, right? So these days, the number of events that are happening, the number of exposures that you have, the total surface area that is exposed is just getting bigger by more and more data. So you got to keep the guard up. You cannot just assume that, I'm going to have a certain area exposed. And there's a cost that comes with it. And the bigger cost is when the bad guys get through, the blast radius of that gets much bigger, and the attack becomes pervasive. So it is a philosophical question, and it all depends on how important is the data. Like I said, a lot of applications are not protected. If you're ready for that application or that piece of data to go down, then it's a different question. But I mean, in the ideal world, you get the best of both. You don't want to compromise on security.
Yep. No, great advice. And I do want to pause here just because I know David and Ramesh, you guys have both been sort of scanning through the questions as well. Is there anything that jumped out at you that you really wanted to address that maybe I haven't pulled out of the questions yet?
No, I just say that this is a very unique solution that we presented today for the first time. And there's a lot of work that has gone into it from both sides. And it addresses a lot of use cases. And there's a lot of learning. So we are happy to take follow-ups, we're happy to run an assessment, happy to work with the teams and get you all up and running and stay healthy in the new year.
Great. Yeah. And David, any closing thoughts on your side?
Just to echo that, I mean, there's some really great questions. I'm sorry we don't have time here to address all of them. I'm particularly proud of, how our engineering teams at Pure and Rubrik have worked together. And it, when I saw the demo of how Rubrik had integrated safe mode snapshots into their, into their product, it was everything I would have liked to have seen about 15 years ago. Super simple, couple of clicks and you're up and running. So I'd certainly urge, I know we all have a lot to consume and not a lot of time, but I'd certainly urge this audience to go and, review some of the materials. And reach out to us. We'd love to answer more of these questions if we had the time.
Yeah, super. Yep. Okay. Well, thanks to both of you. And I guess just one more time, Ramesh. There's there's a lot of great information here about this partnership. Just one more time, what's the best way for people to get started with you guys on this?
There's many ways, right? I mean, the one of the things I'd recommend is look into what Rubrik Zero Trust is offering with partners. Take a hold of the assessment. This is a hot area for all of us. And reach out, right? Reach out, because we would love to help you out with assessments, whether you're running any of the data security solutions. We can complement them and take the ball forward. And you can reach out to datasafety@rubrik.com. You can reach out pure@rubrik.com. You can reach out to us independently, whatever shape or form you prefer.
Fantastic. Well, Ramesh and David, thank you both for a great presentation and all your thoughtful answers in the Q&A portion. Really appreciate your time today.
Pleasure.
And finally, it's time for the $300 Amazon gift card prize drawing. And the winner of the $300 Amazon gift card today is Anil Makwan from Illinois. Congratulations to Anil Makwan. We'll be in touch to get you your card. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I do want to thank Rubrik and Pure Storage for making this event possible. And thanks as always for attending and for all of your great questions. That concludes today's event. Have a great rest of your day.